अच्छा सुनो सुनो, ये पेन कैसे काम करेगा इस पे? ओके ओके ओके, मुझे देखना है, ठीक है ठीक है। लेकिन ठीक है। Okay, good afternoon class. We meet again. Huh? Okay, so this is current affairs for the week 2, May. We cover 5 issues. First issue is related to climate change. Okay, climate change. This is Santa Marta Climate Conference. The theme that we have, theme is climate change. Climate change, okay. So when we talk about climate change, we have seen how many conference of parties are there, okay. Up until now, how many conference of parties are there? 30, okay. Conference of party 30, and therefore we find that these negotiations, when we talk about UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, these conventions or the things that are decided under this is moving at a very, very slow pace, okay. So you will find that this conference is meant to accumulate such kind of countries which are saying that we want to proceed at a faster pace. Okay? And this conference is something that is not a part of UNFCCC. Okay, it is going to proceed apart from UNFCCC. Okay, so how many countries? 50 plus countries, they have met in Colombia, and this is the first international conference when we talk about transitioning away from fossil fuels. So remembering from our static portions, when we talk about the naming of the gas, first was naming of the gas, greenhouse gas, है ना? So first was that we try to go for carbon dioxide itself, or we are talking about the global warming potential as compared to the greenhouse gases with reference to CO2. Transitioning away, what does transitioning mean? There is a term called, or a phrase, that is just transition. It means that we are moving away from the conventional fuels, the ones that are known to create huge amount of global warming. Okay? If they increase the global warming effect, therefore you will have more amount of temperature. Okay? So if we are going to transition, maybe we are going to transition to, suppose, say electric vehicles, or we are going to transition to renewable sources of energy. This kind of renewable sources of energy, it is not something that is accessible for all the nations, and all the nations are not equally placed, and therefore this kind of a transition will bring in various kinds of dysfunctionalities within the economies. So this kind of a transition has to be just, that means it has to be fair, it has to be equitable. Fair and equitable. Okay, equitable means considering what are the circumstances in which the nations are. Co-trigger frustration with slow consensus-based UNFCCC COP negotiations on the fossil fuel phase out. Okay? So the world is divided into 2 parts. When we talk about the developing countries, they are basically focused upon coal. When we talk about the developed countries, they are focused upon petrol. Okay? Petroleum, and that will be regulated by the OPEC countries. When we talk about coal, it is mainly the feature of the developing nations. Okay? So core idea is that create a coalition of willing outside this traditional UNFCCC. Okay? UN climate deadlocks, they say that already developing and developed countries are undergoing certain kinds of debates, and these kind of negotiations are occurring at a very slow pace. Therefore, can we have certain countries who are willing, and they are also willing to move at a faster pace. Okay? So what are the key features? Key features of this? Just a second. Yes, so key features. First, it is hosted by which countries? Colombia, Netherlands. Okay. So the features, the objective first is that you will have to develop roadmaps for the fossil fuel phase out. Okay. This means when you're talking about fossil fuel, if this kind of energy source, if energy source has to be done away with or it has to be replaced, then how are you going to do so? What are the timelines that you will prescribe? So for example, France has a roadmap, the roadmap with respect to its own fossil fuels, coal, oil and gas. Which one is much more efficient? The most efficient out of them? This is most energy efficient, highest, right? So it says that France will phase out coal by 2030, oil by 2045 and gas by 2050. Okay. That means it will move to renewable sources of energy. This is the shift, this is the transition towards the renewable energy systems. What is renewable?
It will not be lost.
It will not be lost from where? One parameter here that is very important is time. That is, it should be made available at the original position. It should be there in an appropriate time. Okay? It is not, we are talking not about the geological time scale. Otherwise, everything will be renewable. So, very important distinction. It has to be there within the time. Okay? Something that will not get depleted, and it also has to be within the time. Okay? Reasonable period of time. Reasonable. Okay. Then align trade and finance with green transition. Green transition, that means transition towards such kind of systems which are energy efficient. Also, they are less polluting in nature. These are the core objectives. Okay, core objectives. What are the major discussions? First, they talk about fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. Non-proliferation means that I will not trade in these fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, the conventional fuels that we use at present, in the present day, coal, oil and gas, we are not going to have this kind of a trade. That means we will not let it cross the borders and reach the other states who are part of this treaty. Okay, first. Second, end fossil fuel subsidies. End fossil fuel subsidies, you will see that certain developed nations, while they have phased out certain types of conventional fuels, they are still giving subsidies in these fossil fuels when it comes to trade. That means they will send these fossil fuels like coal, it will be exported to other developing countries. Okay? So they are saying that subsidies both for your domestic support as well as the exporters, both of these has to be stopped. Okay? Third is climate finance and technology support for the developing countries. Climate finance and technology support for the developing countries. We always see that there is a difference between developed and the developing countries. What is the difference? It is in the level of development also, it is level of funds, and it is also in the technological transfer. Technology transfer. Okay? So the developed countries will have this, developing countries would want this, and therefore the principle of historic emissions as well as the principle that requires climate reparations will require that there is a transfer of all of these things from the developed countries to the developing countries. Climate reparations means whatever harm has been done in the past because of the historical emissions. Okay. Now, limitations and criticism. Whenever we talk about negotiations, even in the case of UNFCCC, there has always been criticism and limitations because you cannot get the major emitters on board. You do not have the major countries who are on board. Okay, the principal emitters, major emitters of the past as well as the major emitters of the present, they need to be on board so that you can have an effective dialogue. So here, what is the limitation? There is absence of major emitters, including India. Okay? India in the present day, it is one of the major emitters, but it is not a part of this conference. US, China and India, all these three. Okay, so it weakens the global impact. In Kyoto Protocol, remember what was the condition? Yes, 55% of the countries, 55 countries and 55% of the greenhouse gas emissions. Okay. No binding authority. Since not all the nations would have signed this, there is no binding authority. So even if they decide whatever the core objectives are, it is not something that is going to be conclusive. Okay. So it is outside UNFCCC and there is no universal legal obligations. There is an understanding that those kind of actions, those kind of conventions that are legally binding are the ones that will make the nations make a law for them in their own countries. Okay, this is not going to do so. Then finance challenge, you have developing countries that need large scale funding for transition. Okay, a country like India, when we talk about the windmills, for example, the cost of having windmills or having the wind energy as a renewable source of energy, it is very, very costly. Even if you try to derive electricity out of it, it might take you 50 to 100 years to recover the cost. That much expensive. That is how expensive it is. So we mainly, when we talk about India's renewable energy, we mainly tilt towards solar energy and hydroelectric power. Okay, hydro, you will have large hydro and small hydro based upon how much amount of electricity it is deriving. So core insight, it is in a good direction, but then there is weak enforceability. Weak enforceability. Now the static part. UNFCCC, so we have seen, we know that it started in 1992, Rio Summit. The first conference of party was in 1995. Okay. What are the important protocols under this? First was Kyoto Protocol and then the major one, it is Paris Agreement. Okay. Based upon this, we have negotiations between the developed and the developing countries that have led to convergence in the discussions. So it is strengthened by two things. One is Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol, was it a success or failure? Failure. Okay. Paris Agreement is still in progress and it seems to be something that is going to help and also strengthen the negotiations. Conference of Party, annually, every time you will have one climate summit under UNFCCC. The last one was in Belém, that is Brazil. Okay, COP1, Berlin, 1995, this. Okay. COP30, 2025, Belém, Brazil. How many countries participated? 198 countries. Okay. Supporting bodies, one is SBI. This is subsidiary body for implementation. This is for implementation. SBSTA, this is for science and technology. Okay. Subsidiary body for science and technology advice. These are the supporting bodies for the COP, Conference of Parties. Okay, just these are some short forms that you should take a note of. That we talk about COP. COP is directly related to UNFCCC decisions. Okay, when we say CMP, this P is for Kyoto Protocol, understand it like this, and CMA, this A is for Paris Agreement. Okay, so starting from when was the Paris Agreement there? 2015. Okay, so 2016 you will have CMP or CMA 2. Okay, it will proceed like that. Hosting system, it rotates across 5 UN regions. Okay, 5 UN regions. There are certain regions like Africa is a region. Okay, Eastern Europe. Okay, you will have Asia Pacific and so on. So whenever we talk about the presidencies, who would be the one that would be hosting them? It is selected as per the regions. It rotates according to the regions. 5 regions are there. Upcoming hosts, COP31 and COP32 is in Ethiopia. This is in Turkey. 2027, Ethiopia. Talking about the Santa Marta conference, the process, 2027 meeting will be in Tuvalu and it will be co-hosted by Ireland. So important thing for us is to just understand that if there is a question in prelims, they will ask you whether this Santa Marta conference, whether it is a part of UNFCCC or not. Second, they can ask you whether India is a part of it or not. Thirdly, they can ask you whether it is legally binding or not. Okay? So this is what we have to see in this. Next, tiger deaths in Kanha Tiger Reserve. Where is Kanha Tiger Reserve? Madhya Pradesh. Okay? This is in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so it has been seen, the news is that there has been a tigress along with her 4 cubs. She has died in Kanha Tiger Reserve. So what is the reason? The reason is this canine distemper virus. Canine distemper virus is something that was also affecting the Asiatic lions. Asiatic lions are there in Gir. Okay? You will have Asiatic lion. What is the endangered, vulnerable status? For this, it is endangered. For Asiatic lion, it is endangered. Okay? Endangered. What is the core concern? The concern is that disease, it is going to spill over from domestic animals to the wildlife. Okay? There are certain diseases, and that is the reason that we talk about the approach known as One Health approach. What is One Health approach? We talk about all the living organisms and how does pathogen jump from one organism to the other. Whether one organism is able to communicate these kind of pathogens to the other or not. Okay. So it is something that we should not only be focused upon the human health, but should also talk about the connected health of the wildlife animals and the domestic animals also. Okay, so CDV, canine distemper virus, contagious viral disease. This is viral, not bacterial. Okay, this thing you have to always keep in mind. Virus means it needs a host. It needs a host, it will multiply inside a host. Okay, outside the host, it will have no value. So contagious, that means it can be communicated. Affects whom? Affects the carnivores. Okay. What are the symptoms? Symptoms, 1, respiratory. It is there with respect to digestion also, and neurological symptoms are also observed in the tigers. Okay, the cause of death is not that important, the symptoms. Transmission is something that is important, and particularly this, that it often spreads from stray or domestic dogs to the wildlife. Okay. Remember, dogs are also responsible for something known as secondary poisoning. Secondary poisoning. What was this secondary poisoning? This was in the case of vultures. This was in the case of vultures. How many vultures are there in India? 9. How many critically endangered? 4. 4 are critically endangered. So when we talk about dogs, what happened was they consumed these poison that was meant to be there for the rats. Okay, they consumed these poison and therefore they died. And once they are dead, the vultures will feed on the bodies of the dogs and therefore they will also get poisoned in the process. And vultures, we know, they are the scavengers. That means they will clear off the wastes from the environment. Okay, so this is transmission. 1 is direct contact. Okay, if you come in direct contact with this virus, it is going to spread contaminated materials, that means containing the bodily fluids. Those materials that are there with the bodily fluids of the affected animal. Okay. Now this is another type of risk. When we were talking about biodiversity loss occurs because of there is 4 reasons. What are the 4 reasons? Habitat fragmentation, invasive alien species, secondary extinction, and overexploitation. Overexploitation is the third one. Secondary extinction is the last one. Okay, it is in the priority order itself, the way it affects the biodiversity loss. So another risk is there. Another risk is that when there is a interaction between the wildlife and the domestic animal. Okay. So these two, whenever there is an interface, there can be more contagious disease or there can be infectious disease that will spread. Diseases that spread. Okay. So it poses a threat to our conservation measures also. Project Tiger is there. Project Tiger 1973. Okay. You'll find that first of all, when we talk about conservation, it is not just about increasing the number of tigers. It is also about conserving their habitats, conserving all the prey that they are dependent upon. The second thing is that you are also facing the risk through the animals, that is through the domestic animals, and this is also affecting your conservation process. Some static facts about Kanha Tiger Reserve. How many tiger reserves are there in India? 58. Which one is the largest with the largest critical tiger habitat? Nagarjuna Sagar, Sri Sailam. ठीक है. With the smallest? Orang in Assam. ठीक है. Kanha Tiger Reserve. One location is Madhya Pradesh. ठीक है. This is with respect to geography. We have to remember this Maikal range of Satpura Hills, and this is also called the Central Indian Highlands. This is Kanha Tiger Reserve. This whole is the map of Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh will have number of tiger reserves. The other tiger reserves are, if we have to arrange them, north to south. It is, which one is at the north? Kuno National Park. Famous for what? Reintroduction of cheetah program. ठीक है. Panna Tiger Reserve. Then Sanjay Dhubri, Bandhavgarh, and then Kanha Tiger Reserve. ठीक है. So history, you don't need to remember the dates, but you just have an idea. National Park 1955, it was included under the Project Tiger 1973. Since when did we start designating tiger reserves? Since when? 2006. 2006, and it has been 20 years. 20 years since we started, and you will also have the tiger census. It becomes important. Connectivity linked with Pench Tiger Reserve and Achanakmar Tiger Reserve. These two things are there. This linkage is there. Okay. So whenever we talk about linked or connectivity, because we understand that tigers are not going to stay in one spot, they are going to travel close to 50 kilometers, you could say. So they need to be connected. This habitat needs to be connected, and therefore there is a concept of protected area network. That means if your habitat is getting degraded, then you can shift to different habitats without coming into conflict with the human settlements. That is the concept behind wildlife corridors also. Okay, wildlife corridors, habitat 1, habitat 2. You need to have a safe passage so that you are not going to come into the areas with human settlements. You are avoiding them. Okay, they might ask you some questions upon what is the biodiversity there. So the key species that is found there, one is the Royal Bengal tiger. Then you also have leopard. What is the IUCN status for leopard? It is vulnerable, yes. Okay. Both of leopard as well as snow leopard. Okay. Other than that, you will find Barasingha. This is the picture. Barasingha. Wild dogs, sloth bear. Special significance, conservation of hard ground Barasingha. This is particularly grasslands as well. Okay, when they ask you about the habitat, what is the habitat? The grasslands. Okay. Forest, grasslands and deserts for terrestrial ecosystem. So vegetation mainly consisting of sal forests. Sal forest, bamboo forest, meadows and wetlands. What do I have to remember out of these? These two at least. Sal forest and bamboo forests. Now this is connecting two things. This next topic. This topic talking about pollution. ठीक है. Pollution. How this pollution is affecting the supply or affecting the ecosystem itself. Okay. Which ecosystem? Which type of ecosystem we are talking about? Natural में. In natural ecosystem, we are talking about the transition zone. Transition zone. That means it contains the wetlands. ठीक है. So this is Bhitarkanika mangrove ecosystem. What do we remember about mangroves? Mangroves, halophytic plants. That means they are always in exposure of high salt concentrated water. ठीक है. Therefore, they will have certain types of adaptations that they will exhibit. Coastal mostly. So what has been observed? It has been observed that the study has detected microplastics in all 20 sampled sites in Bhitarkanika National Park. This national park has been asked in your previous year questions multiple times. Okay? Even as the right option, even as the wrong option. So microplastics, what are microplastics? You have two types of microplastics, primary and secondary. Okay, primary microplastics and secondary microplastics. When we talk about plastics, there is microplastic, there is macroplastic, and you will find that less than 5 millimeter. If it is less than 5 millimeter, then it is called a microplastic. Primary microplastic would be the one that is manufactured as such, manufactured as microplastics itself. That means less than 5 millimeter size. When we talk about secondary microplastics, it is the macroplastics, the bigger plastics like the bottles that have degraded, that have reduced in size and have come to this size. This has become less than 5 millimeters. What is the finding? The concentration of these microplastic is now 50.4 items per kg of the sediment. Okay? Now 89% of the particles were fiber based. Fiber based matlab we are trying to understand what is the source of this microplastic. Okay? Source, fiber based. So insight is even protected mangrove ecosystems are becoming microplastic sinks. Okay? Now coming to this, the static part. First of all, where is Bhitarkanika ecosystem? You will see that it is on the coast of Odisha. Somewhere, this is it. Okay, this is which district it is? Kendrapada. This is very much famous for ORTs. What is ORT? Olive Ridley turtles. Olive Ridley turtles. What is the IUCN status for them? Vulnerable. Okay. So location Kendrapada district, Odisha. What are the important rivers? Sometimes they will ask you in MCQs also, in prelims. They might ask you with respect to this national park, which of the rivers are passing through it. So which of the rivers are there? Brahmani, Maitarni and Dhamra. These two out of the three are much more important for you to remember. Okay. So when we talk about mangrove ecosystem, we have already understood that this is terrestrial ecosystem. And when we talk about terrestrial ecosystem, forest, grasslands, deserts, aquatic, we know that there is brackish, marine, freshwater, and something in between is your transition zone. Transition zone. That means a combination of land plus water or waterlogged land. Okay? Mainly present in the estuaries. So what kind of modifications are there? Those modifications. These are the roots. These are the roots that will be not just the roots that are buried in the soil, but they are also coming out of the stem. It is to balance the tree. It is to balance the plant itself, because in the moist soil conditions, it is not able to gain balance. One is that. The second thing is that the water there is salty. Okay, you will find that there is high amount of salt concentration. And therefore, you will find that the leaves of these plants will eject out salt particles. Okay? They will utilize this water only, but through adaptation, they have developed this kind of a mechanism that they take salt water and filter out the salt and excrete it out through their leaves. Why is it important? Second largest mangrove ecosystem, and it is also a Ramsar site. Ramsar site. ठीक है, Ramsar Convention is about what? Wetlands of importance. What are the key species? The key species you will find here is saltwater crocodile. This was a question that was asked. Okay, that is if you want to find saltwater crocodile, which of the following habitats or the national park will you see? Saltwater crocodile. This being a kind of a mangrove ecosystem also is something that is going to be very, very productive. Okay, so migratory birds and olive ridley turtles. These are olive ridley turtles. What are they doing on the beach? It is mass nesting site. Mass nesting site, and that is known as aribadas or arrival. This is a reproductive niche. Reproductive niche for olive ridley turtles. Functions of mangroves. What are the functions? Sediment trap. Okay, because we see that these are some root extensions that are coming out of various parts of the plants, we will see that they will also trap the sediments. Okay, they will not let the soil erode easily. Okay, this is enhanced feature as compared to a tree. Much more trapping of sediments is there. Second, cyclone buffer. Cyclone buffer. Okay, you will see that when there is high amount of waves, when the waves are too high, these will act as a nature-based solution. NBS, nature-based solution. That means it will reduce the impact of waves on the coasts. In effect, they will also reduce the amount of soil erosion that it can create. Also, it will reduce the amount of damage that it can create on livelihood and properties. Third, it is blue carbon sink. What is blue carbon sink? We have seen brown carbon, black carbon. This is blue carbon. What is blue carbon? What is carbon sink? Carbon can be stored. We have seen in carbon cycle there is two types of cycle. One is long term cycle, one is short term cycle. Long term cycle will be stored in what? Soil, and short term cycle will be stored in biomass. When we talk about the carbon in water or oceans, it is called blue carbon. Okay? So it is saying that in the water itself and in the water based biomass, you will find that the storage of carbon that helps in the carbon cycle, this is called blue carbon. Okay? We'll also see that because of the microplastics that are there in this kind of a vegetation, you'll find that a lot of this carbon that has entered the carbon cycle in this mangroves, a lot of this carbon is being sourced from the microplastics itself. Okay, that means they are able to disrupt the natural carbon cycle. Okay, and that is why it is a problem. Okay. Now, microplastics sources and mechanism. First, plastic particles less than 5 millimeter. This we have already seen. And it is from degraded plastic and synthetic fibers also. This is your macroplastics converting into microplastics. That means macroplastics, when they come and satisfy this threshold of being less than 5 millimeters, this is secondary microplastic. Main sources for this when we talk about microplastics and Bhitarkanika mangrove systems: textiles, fishing nets, sewage, urban runoff. These are the most important sources. And out of them also, these two are more important. Okay? There is something known as, within textiles, there is something known as polyamide fibers. There is a dominance of the polyamide fibers, 89% of them. Okay? So what is the issue here? One, there is trapping of pollutants. Pollutants get accumulated. Okay, both in environment, when we talk about environment, ecosystems. Okay, they disrupt cycles of carbon cycle gets disrupted. Also, there are concepts bioaccumulation, biomagnification. This will also occur because of the long-term accumulation. Okay. So one thing is, just like in air pollutants, when we talk about air pollutants, we talk about two types of pollutant. One is the gaseous pollutant, the other is the particulate matter. Okay, this is the solid matter that is being that has such a less amount of weight that it can float in the air. Okay. Similarly, when we talk about water pollutants, there are two things that we can talk about. One is a pollutant itself, that means in water itself, any kind of chemicals. The other thing is plastics. Okay. These plastics are notorious because they let these chemicals or poisonous chemicals, organic pollutants, they accumulate on the plastics. Okay. Just like you will find that gaseous pollutants through chemical reactions, they will also accumulate on the particulate matter, PM 2.5, PM 10. We have talked about ammonium nitrate. Okay. Ammonium nitrate. What are particulate matters? PM 2.5, PM 10. This means it has a size of less than 2.5 micrometer or 10 less than 10 micrometer. Here microplastics will have a size less than 5 millimeter. This is an analogy that you can draw between air pollutants and water pollutants. So heavy metal attachment is there in plastics. What are those heavy metals? Lead, arsenic, cadmium, zinc. Arsenic in water causes what? Arsenicosis. Okay. Cadmium, there is a disease called etai. Okay. So they become, microplastics will become toxic carriers. Okay. What is the bioaccumulation pathway? What is bioaccumulation? How is it different from biomagnification? If it occurs only within the organism, then it is called biomagnification. If it occurs across the trophic levels, it is called bioaccumulation. Okay. So why is it getting accumulated? What is the reason?
Because it will be fat soluble or acid viscose.
Yes. So if it was stored in the water, that means if it was dissolving in water, then it would have been excreted out. Because it is stored in fat, therefore it is going to be there for a longer time. So ecological risks are, one is there is food chain contamination. Yes, bioaccumulation is there, and therefore you will find that not only the further food chains are getting contaminated, the bodies of the organisms are getting contaminated, but also it is going to affect human health when they consume such kind of contaminated seafood. Benthic organisms exposure. What is benthic? They are lying at the bottom. The organisms that lie at the bottom of these mangrove ecosystems, they are also going to get affected because it is microplastics that are going to accumulate over there in much more quantities. Second thing is, they are also decomposers that are present in the lower place. So basically your carbon cycle will also get disrupted here. That is why they will affect the benthic organisms more. Biodiversity stress. This is obviously something that will be the result of bioaccumulation. So chemical composition, it matters more than quantity. Remember we talked about qualitative pollutant and quantitative pollutant. Quantitative and qualitative. What is qualitative? Qualitative means that even if there is a small amount of this pollutant, then also it is going to be very, very harmful. So in this case, the plastic, the microplastic, even though it is very, very small, it is going to accumulate various other pollutants also, and it is going to lead to biodiversity loss. So the chemical composition, that is what the statement is saying. Chemical composition matters more than the quantity.
It's the other way around. Bioaccumulation is within one organism. Within the food chain, it's biomagnification.
Bioaccumulation is within the trophic levels. Bioaccumulation is within the trophic levels. Biomagnification? Other way around?
Other way around.
Okay.
Masking.
From what I can remember right now, it is this way. Okay. So this is, you will have to check kya hai actually. Always there is a confusion between A and M, bioaccumulation and biomagnification. So key insight second, high extreme ecological risk despite moderate density. Okay. There is extreme risk, ecological risk despite the moderate density. This is clearly pointing towards it being a qualitative pollutant. That means even if there is smaller quantities, then also you will have higher amount of risk because of its multiplier effect. Multiplier effect in the sense that it acts both as a solid particle, also accumulates the organic pollutants. Bioaccumulation is within the organism. Biomagnification magnifies as you move up the trophic levels. Okay. So challenges and way forward. First of all, when we talk about the standards, no explicit microplastic standards are there. That means, do we prescribe it in the rules? In the rules that is there for the waste management rules, there are no such standards that are given. Second, this leaks out through your sewage systems also. Okay, whatever the water bodies we have, the sewage system will lead out and it will also reach the ocean bodies. Okay, also affecting the mangroves in the way. Third, fragmented river basin governance. Water is what kind of subject? Whether it is central, union list or subject list? That means state subject, na? State subject. So you will find that it will be very much fragmented in the sense that how much amount of area is under which state, and therefore how much does it need to govern. That means how much amount of it is going to be used, and that is the reason you have various kinds of disputes. Disputes are there, and therefore you will have various kinds of tribunals. Then there is no national monitoring system. No national monitoring system when we talk about water pollution. Water pollution, and we are also talking about how much amount of plastic wastes are there. ठीक है. Way forward. Way forward is first river basin management approach. That means this fragmentation has to be stopped. Okay, you will have the whole of river basin under one management. That means you should not have it in silos. One is this. Okay, just like the N cap that you have, and you have collision of air quality. Air quality. There are certain things when we talk about river basin management approach. One thing is that whenever you have pollution source, the source will be somewhere, okay, and the pollution will be somewhere else. Okay, that means it can reach from one portion to the other. Just like you have air pollution in Delhi, and it is because of the stubble burning and the vehicle exhaust, all the construction activities, all the industrial applications that are there surrounding the state or surrounding the union territory. Similarly, if you go for treating that kind of air pollution, if you want some kind of solutions, there has to be the combined effort of all the territories that are around that. Okay. Similarly, you should also talk about the river basin. It should not be through a fragmented approach. It should be having a whole river basin approach. Then there should be microfiber filtration in STPs. What is STPs? Sewage treatment plants. Sewage treatment plants. So we have seen this, that there is challenge. Weak sewage filtration. That means these microplastics, because of their small size nature, they are also escaping into the sewage, and therefore you should have this kind of filtration. This kind of filtration is possible because we are talking about particles that are solid. ठीक है. Third, include microplastics in EIA norms. ठीक है. There is no mention of microplastics in EIA. What is EIA? Environmental Impact Assessment. ठीक है. We should have this microplastics in the EIA norms. Fourth is circular economy for plastics and fishing gear. That means whatever is reaching the end of the cycle, end of life, this product must be utilized again. It must be fed as a raw material in your economy. Regular CPCB and SPCB monitoring. SPCB and CPCB get the mandate from which act? EPA, है ना, Environmental Protection Act 1986. 1986. Then this is about biodiversity, and also it relates to your ecosystem. First chapter, Aravali's. ठीक है. Biodiversity this. So rusty spotted cat in Aravali's, and it points towards urban biodiversity and conservation signal. ठीक है. This is mainly the theme is talking about that there are certain types of habitat that are supporting, despite their modifications, they are supporting these animals. ठीक है. So Aravali's was in news previously. Aravali's was in news because of what? Because of the scientific definition of how high the Aravali's are. ठीक है. Based on this, you are going to allow some kind of developmental activities which have to be aligned with EIA. ठीक है. So what has been done? First, why is it in news? Is that there is a first photographic evidence of breeding of rusty spotted cat in the Aravali's. ठीक है. So what is the significance? First, mother and kitten sighting. It confirms that there has been breeding population. That is not only the individuals but also their offsprings have been seen. So it is a clear indication that breeding is also taking place, and this points to the direction that it is an indicator of the environment, indicator of the habitat that supports the survival conditions of these species. ठीक है. Not merely transient presence means it is not like they are just passing through or they are residing at a different place. It is this place that they are residing at. So core insight one is urban fringe ecosystems can sustain sensitive wildlife species as well. ठीक है. So this means that even if we have habitat modifications, even if you have certain types of modern or urban ecosystems, then also it will be able to sustain them. Now for us, these are the things that are important. First of all, rusty spotted cat. It is one of the world's smallest wild cats. ठीक है. What are the big cats? Jaguar, puma. ठीक है. So leopards, yes. So size for this is a small cat. This is 35 to 48 centimeters. 35 to 48 centimeters. And it is native not just to India but also to Nepal and Sri Lanka. These two countries are also there. What is the WPA status? It is under which schedule? Schedule 1. IUCN status near threatened. Near threatened means that it is not vulnerable, it is not in the threatened categories. ठीक है. Behavior nocturnal, elusive, and it has low population density. Comes out at night. ठीक है. It is going to be shy. Okay, it will avoid any kind of confrontation, avoid any kind of appearance. What is the habitat? Habitat 1, scrub forests, grasslands and human modified landscapes. This is about the urban areas. And when we talk about the Aravali's itself, you will find that it is a combination because it is kind of stopping the Thar desert from extending towards eastland. ठीक है. So scrub forest and grasslands. What is something that is between the forest and the deserts? It is the grasslands itself. So this kind of combination will be there. Grasslands plus scrub, this part. Next, ecological significance of Aravali's. Okay, you can see this. That first of all, it acts as a natural water sponge. The reason is that it is something that is going to feed into the hydrological cycle. ठीक है. Second, green wall against the desert, because at this height you will find that it is also going to have vegetation. If you have more amount of vegetation, there would be much more retention of water, and because of more transpiration, and also there would be retention in the atmosphere also. Humidity will be high. Then green wall against the desert. Green wall against the desert. What does this mean? Green wall against the desert. Yes. Prevents the spread of desert-like condition. Prevents spread of desert-like conditions. How? How does it do so? You'll find that the sand particles through soil erosion. That means, what are the agent? What is the agent of erosion here? Wind. Wind, because of that, sand particles will fly off and they will get deposited on the grasslands. In effect, you will find that the xerophytic plants, that is the dry plants, the plants that are surviving in these adverse conditions, they will spread out. It is a corridor for wildlife. Okay, that is, it provides a safe passage for the wild populations. If all of this, if the Aravali's, if we talk about the height of the Aravali's getting reduced, then the degradation, what will happen? Water scarcity and flooding. Agriculture, that will be in crisis. Reduced water availability will be there, lower crop yields. You will have less amount of fertile land. Fertility of the land will go down. You will also require the soil texture should be in that range so that it can retain water. If it does not retain water, if it is much more of sand particles that are there, then you will find that it is not going to retain water that is useful for the plants. Matlab, crops require nutrients, and these nutrients require that they stay retained in the soil. Retention is possible only when you have silty soil, silt or loamy soil. ठीक है. So this is there. Then worsening of air quality. You will have more amount of PM 2.5, PM 10. Then irreversible land damage. That means something that you cannot recover. ठीक है. For us to know, biodiversity corridor, it is a barrier against desertification. This we have seen. Ecosystem type, what kind of type of ecosystem is there? Dry deciduous and thorn scrub vegetation. Okay, it is also ecotone that we should remember. Kind of an ecotone. Ecological importance, it helps provide prey base and shelter, and there are presence of small predators that indicate that the trophic balance is healthy. Okay, climate linkage, we have seen all of them. One is carbon sink, groundwater carbon sink in the term of long-term or short-term carbon cycle. That means storing it as biomass. Supports climate resilience, groundwater recharge zone because of the hydrological cycle, acting as a natural water sponge. Then urban biodiversity and behavioral adaptation, when we are talking about the rusty spotted cat. Rusty spotted cat. So first of all, it has been there. Multiple sightings are there, 20 to 30 locations, different individuals. It indicates what? It indicates that the population is quite stable. First, behavioral adaptation. Behavioral adaptation that it has been seen. That is, usually it is going to be there in the tree covers. You will find it in the forest cover. you'll find it in the forest areas, but still when we have modifications, that is when we introduce urban modifications, it is also adapting behaviorally. Okay? And it is occupying this habitat. It survives near the settlements. The concept here is behavioral plasticity. Plasticity means that it has an ability to get remolded. Ability to remold. Plasticity. Okay? So it is ability to adapt to the changing environments as well. So it challenges the old assumptions. The old assumption was that they will always occupy the dense forest, and for them to come out of these dense forest, it will be something that is going to affect the biodiversity. And the biodiversity loss ke liye, evil quoted, we were talking about habitat degradation. Okay, but it is being seen that even when there is habitat degradation, they can move out to certain places and behaviorally adapt to it because of this behavioral plasticity. Okay. So it says urban mosaics. Mosaics means different places with different habitats, different conditions. They can also be used for conserving of these rusty spotted cats. Then you have ecocide and international law. Okay. So first, there has been increased debate on recognizing ecocide under international law. What is ecocide? Yes. So large scale environmental destruction that is causing severe ecosystem damage. Side always means death. Eco means when we are talking about the biodiversity and the ecosystem at the ecosystem level. Okay. So it is being proposed that you should make ecocide fifth international crime under the Rome Statute along with others. Okay, that means one is genocide, crimes against humanities, war crimes, crime of aggression. Okay, these are the ones that are subject to and they are said to be international crime. That means whenever there are courts, there is international criminal court. Okay, that will also talk about what are considered to be criminal activities at the level of the countries also. Okay, so it is genocide, that is committing activities that are criminal against a particular community. Okay, crimes against humanity, war crimes, that is because of the war there are people who are not able to get their basic necessities, and then crimes of aggression. So they are saying that ecocide, that is killing of the environment, ecocide, killing of the environment, must also be included within this list of crimes. Okay. So first of all, what is the current position at the international law level? Okay, we are not talking about the domestic, we are talking about the international law. It is environmental destruction is something that is recognized only in the wartime, not in the other times. That means peacetime you will not have these, you will have this only in the wartime. Only when two countries are warring each other and you will find that it is leading to destruction of environment, that is only when the environmental destruction will be recognized. What is the problem? The problem is that the damage, the way it is defined, that is the problem. That means it has to be simultaneous, it has to be widespread, it has to be long term, and it has to be severe. Okay. All of these conditions need to be met for you to term that this is an act of ecocide. So this is extremely difficult to prove legally. Second thing is the limitation that we talked about. Wartime, there is no such thing as ecocide in the peacetime. This is a limitation. So what are some examples? For example, you will have Amazon deforestation, oil spills that affect the seas also, deep sea mining that lead to a lot of biodiversity loss in the bottom of the oceans. Okay, and then large scale industrial pollution, that means they are also discharging their effluents into the rivers and that is effectively getting carried to the oceans, effluents. Okay, so the proposed definition proposed definition of ecocide just because it should be easier for us to prove, just because it is easier to determine legally. Determine legally. So it says that 2021 expert panel, it came up with a definition. The definition is unlawful or wanton acts. What is wanton? It means reckless disregard for environmental harm. Reckless disregard for environmental harm. That means you are proceeding even though you need that, even when you know that it is going to create harmful conditions for the environment. So unlawful or wanton acts committed with the knowledge, that means you already have the knowledge that there is substantial likelihood of severe, so here they are using the word severe and either widespread or long-term environmental damage. Okay. So they are using severe, widespread, long-term. This kind of a damage is there. So this is difficult to prove legally. Old standard was this: severe, widespread and long-term. New proposal is that you just replace it by severe and widespread or long-term. Okay, you include both of this. You don't say that. ऐसा नहीं है कि you use and for it, you use or for it. That means even if it satisfies one of the conditions, then also it is fine. That means either in space or in time. Okay. So it lowers the evidentiary burden significantly. That means how much amount of evidence should you have to consider this as a case of ecocide. Okay. Now supporters, there are supporters for the mass ecological destruction. There are states, small island states are there, climate vulnerable countries, environmental groups. Okay, these are the ones that are most affected and they need funds that are from their own budget to ward off such kind of ecocide process. Challenges, you will find that there is opposition from the major industrial economies. For example, if you talk about climate change leading to ecocide, that means the death of various kinds of ecosystems, you will find that the industrial conditions or the industrial economies would be the ones that will oppose it. Okay, developed countries. And then it is difficult to define the scope clearly. It is not something that has been defined quantitatively. Okay, it has not been defined quantitatively and therefore it is just qualitative definition. Third, ICC already has weak enforcement powers. That means the Indian International Criminal Code, it does not have enough amount of enforcement powers so that it can carry out and ascertain whether ecocide has occurred. Then there is fear of conflict with the development and the energy projects. Again, this correlates with the climate change leading to ecocide. Broader significance, some keywords that we can use in our exam. Environmental governance, this is moving from pollution regulation to criminal accountability, because this is ecocide, that means killing of environment. So who should be made accountable? Second, climate justice dimension. Okay, that means ecological destruction that is seen as a threat to human survival. Geopolitical, when we talk about the global south, whether they can combine together and therefore they also share the level of development, whether they can come to a similar or single platform and they can also talk about this at the international level. Co-debate, two things, anthropocentric, this word you should know, that means you are protecting the humans from environmental harm, versus ecocentric approach, that means you are talking about the environment as well. Nature itself deserves legal protection. This means that nature itself has inherent value. Okay, so this is all. Try and attempt this question. So consider the following statements regarding rusty spotted cat. First, it is endemic only to India. Is it true? No, because you will find that it is there in Nepal and Sri Lanka also. One is wrong. It is protected under Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. It is correct. Third, it is commonly found in dense evergreen forests only. So we have found it in the urban landscapes also, urban mosaics also. So answer is A, 2 only. Then you have consider the following statements regarding the Santa Marta Climate Conference. First, it was organized under the formal framework of UNFCCC. Again, this is wrong. Second, it aimed to accelerate the global transition away from fossil fuels. Yes. Third, the conference highlighted support for a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. 2 and 3. Answer is A. Question number 3. With respect to Bhidarkanika National Park, consider the following statements. First, it hosts the India's second largest mangrove ecosystem. ठीक है, this is correct. Second, mangroves act as natural sediments and sediment traps and coastal bioshields. This is correct. Third, Bhidarkanika is located in Andhra Pradesh, Odisha. ठीक है, so answer is A. ठीक है, okay, thank you.